Happy Halloween, everybody. This has always been one of my favorite holidays, and I just love this time of year overall. So today I wanted to make some popular Halloween characters and creatures, but with a bit of a castle twist. I've got 30 various minifigures, so let's jump right into it. A Halloween character that goes hand in hand with LEGO Castle is the vampire Count Dracula. LEGO Castle sort of has its own Dracula figure with Basil the Batlord, but I wanted to make something a bit different, so here's Count Dracula in a more medieval fantasy style, along with his bride. I used nearly headless Nick's torso and legs as the base, along with the Monster Fighter's vampire head, and I think he turned out well. For the bride, I'm actually using this cape piece from Minifig Realms, and now that they're shipping to the US again, I'm gonna have a video out on them soon. While I already had made some vampires, I figured why not make some possessed humanoid bats to go with them. For their heads, I used some snake ones from Ninjago, and I think they work great for what I was going for. I gave one a bow and the other a spear and a Fright Night shield with a bat on it to really go with the vampire aesthetic. Moving on to another Halloween monster that works great alongside a LEGO Castle faction, we have werewolves that I've turned into Wolfpack members. The first one has a classic chainmail knight look with a sword and shield, and as you'll notice, I've left all their hands the color of their fur, which just adds a nice touch. The next one is a shaman with this really cool red-eyed face print along with this brick-built crow staff. For the final werewolf, I've used this claw piece to go on his hand, and although technically werewolves already have claws, this just looks sick as an added effect. I know it's a bit basic to add werewolves to the wolf pack, but I just had to make these guys, and I'm even considering adding them into my full wolf pack army whenever I get the chance to actually sit down and finish it. One of my favorite Halloween characters as a kid was the Grim Reaper, so I decided to make a slightly more geared up version since I otherwise wouldn't need to change anything to fit him into a medieval aesthetic. I used some chainmail legs from the Wolfpack Beastmaster and the arms from Tasha, and they honestly look really clean for the figure without taking away from the Grim Reaper look. Now, speaking of classic Halloween characters, another one I loved as a kid was the Headless Horseman, but he's typically depicted in Victorian era attire since he was a soldier in the Revolutionary War, so for my version I've made him into an armored knight. I gave him this red-eyed ringwraith horse and it just fits the figure perfectly. Moving on to a twist on one of Halloween's universal monsters, I've made a swamp creature sorcerer, and along with him a black falcon victim who's been mutated by his swampy powers. I happened to use a decent bit of Monster Fighter parts for these figures, and that's by no coincidence, as that was the only classic monster themed IP aside from Scooby-Doo, but just like Castle, it's been lost to time in favor of more licensed themes and other kid-focused IPs. Let me know in the comments if you had any Monster Fighter sets back in the day, as I had some really fond memories with the few that I did own. Now, would it really be Halloween without a silly ghost or two? For this first figure, I've made a very simple ghost knight with the classic cartoonish looking ghost piece, and under it I've given him some armored parts from the Dragonborn Paladin. For the other ghostly figure, I've made a banshee bard who channeled her screaming into learning the flute and impressing crowds. I have too many of this Series 19 Fright Night heads, so I knew I needed to use at least one of them in these figures, and she honestly works great as a lighthearted fantasy fig. Another classic Halloween undead is the simple zombie, so I took some zombie heads that I have and made them into infected townspeople. The first one is a barmaid at a local tavern for various monsters and undead, and although she's maintained her cooking skills since becoming a zombie, the customers tend to have stranger tastes. Next, I've made a blacksmith who hasn't let turning undead stop him from rolling up his sleeves and getting to work on repairing some swords. I really like both of these face prints for townspeople as they maintain very friendly expressions while still clearly being zombies. This last one though is probably my favorite, being a zombie farmer. She looks properly raggedy and completely out of it with her blank, thoughtless expression, and I don't know why, but I just really thought this hat from Biffer worked well, so I gave it to her for a bit of uniqueness. Now, although these zombies are townspeople, I had these great parts from a zombie Captain America figure that I had to use for an undead soldier with a super disheveled appearance. This guy was a former city guard turned undead, but he still clings on to what remains of his former post. A good pairing when it comes to Halloween is a witch and her spooky skeletons. I know these already easily fit into a medieval aesthetic, so I tried to throw in a little extra castle and Halloween elements specifically. For the witch, I've made her an evil cultist using this torso from the D&D Mind Flayer with this creature on the front who she worships for her undead powers. I really love this Hades dress along with this Dreams cape piece to give her a super flowy look, and and I've also used a classic green witch's head to keep that Halloween aesthetic. The first skeleton was from a man who was buried headless, so she used her magic to turn him undead but with a pumpkin for a head, almost like the Headless Horseman. The other skeleton has a very classic knight look, holding a sword and shield along with some armor. Skeletons can be a bit boring just due to the natural limitations around their parts, so I had to get a bit silly with them, and overall I think they look good next to the witch. I originally wanted to make a cool brick-built spider, but I ran out of time, so I scrapped having any sort of spider until I found this Galaxy Squad alien head that really captures that vibe. I made him an archer as I figured he would be pretty accurate with all the eyes, and I also used these cool Darth Maul arms that I've been wanting to make use of for a while. Moving back to the Universal monsters, we of course have mummies. So for my medieval twist, I made a cursed mummy knight and mummy bard. For the knight, I obviously wanted to have the medieval look, but I also threw in a bit of an Egyptian aesthetic as if he was crawling out of a dark pyramid tomb, hence the snake staff. For the mummy bard, I wanted to include more white as if it was his wrapping, so I used the King CMF's neck cape and this white keffiyeh that also fits in with the Middle Eastern aesthetic. I really love this new white guitar piece from the Dia de los Muertos build a minifigure parts, and they're actually in LEGO stores now. Speaking of Universal monsters, I couldn't forget the iconic Dr. Frankenstein and his monster. For a medieval Frankenstein, I didn't want to go over the top as I wanted to match his simple lab coat appearance while also being from an older time period, so I went with this very plain shirt and unprinted dual molded legs. I also gave him this potion and medieval style hood, and they really helped tie the figure together, especially next to the monster. For Frankenstein's monster, I've really leaned into the castle look by turning him into an orc. He's often portrayed in a suit with short sleeves and some boots, so I tried to stick with that sort of style, but instead with some medieval armor. I love this duo, and I'm happy with how my medieval version turned out. Now, what's the spooky season without a few fiery demons as well? Here I threw together a couple with some distinct castle elements to maintain that medieval vibe. The first one is a bit more armored, and he uses a lot of parts from Nexo Knights, which easily has the best variety of pieces for demons. The other one uses these fantastic wings from the Devil Kid and a new Ninjago draconian face, which I absolutely love, although sadly it doesn't seem like we're going to get their parts on Pick-a-Brick. My demons are a faction that I haven't really done anything with, but I totally want to throw some more together soon, and I actually have 2 or 3 different faction ideas planned out for them, and I'm definitely excited, although I do want to finish a couple orc armies first. Of course, I couldn't forget the mischievous goblins of Halloween, and if you haven't noticed, a lot of these monsters already go hand in hand with LEGO Castle and medieval fantasy overall. I definitely wanted to lean into a clear Halloween aesthetic for these guys, and starting off, I've made a goblin knight using the amazing vampire knight helmet. These goblin eyes behind the helmet actually look fantastic, and I might use some of my 100+ unused vampire knight helmets with this head. The next one is just a fairly plain goblin carrying a lantern looking for things to steal, and the final one was pranked by his buddies and got a jack-o'-lantern stuck on his head. As you may have noticed, I got a bit goofy with some of these figures, cause why not? Halloween and LEGO are all about having fun, and I had a blast making these guys. If you enjoyed this style of video, leave a like and let me know in the comments if you have any fun Halloween plans or want to make/made any Halloween themed builds and minifigures. If you like LEGO Castle, subscribe because that's pretty much all I do, and as always, thank you for watching.